I'm Rob Fairley. I want to welcome you to our webinar and thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about using email effectively to engage your congregation. The person we've asked to help us today is someone that we've worked with before. In fact, he's helped us for several years with our website. It's Bob Milneck. Bob is a consultant, is the way I'll describe it. He works with nonprofits, helping them to communicate more effectively. He works with churches, but not solely churches. So this is really his area of expertise. He will be presenting to us for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to have some time for questions so we can get to some specific things that you want to know. And we're going to let him handle all that, and then Chris will join us and kind of close us on out. So without wasting any more Bob's time, let me just say thank y'all for joining us, and thank you, Bob, for leading us. And Bob, it's all yours.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Let me share my screen right here. Let me share my screen. What we're going to talk about today are working with newsletters. By the way, if you have any questions, go ahead and either type them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen or in the chat boxes. I want to get to them as we go through them and answer any questions that you might have. Before we begin, I'd just like to thank the foundation for giving me an opportunity. This area where we focus on online communication is near and dear to my heart. It's one of my missions is to actually help businesses and nonprofits and churches actually do it better and really focus in on how they can make a bigger impact and create a bigger impact using the online world. So with that, let's jump right into things. One of the assumptions that we're going to make is your church is already using bulk email communication. We're not talking about the emails that you get on your email server and send Mary Smith or John Adams. We're talking using bulk emails, sending out like an email blast. I'm going to assume for a minute your church already uses that and understands it. And I'm going to assume for a minute that your church actually understands how to use it, how to make changes, how to send that out. That's not this webinar. If you need help with that, just holler, but that's really not the focus of this webinar. Like everything online, you can have the greatest emails in the world, but if nobody reads it, how really impactful or important was it? I want to focus in on two specific sides of dealing with emails. The first side is much more technical. What can you do to make more people receive your emails? Kind of a technical response. And then the second one is much more value-based. How do you get more people who want to read your emails or engage with your emails? So let's jump into the technical side first. What ends up happening is when you go onto your email server, and that could be Robly, Constant Contact, there's a ton of them, MailChimp, there's a lot of them, and you design an email and you hit send. What ends up happening is that email goes out on the internet through several filters and ends up in the inbox, hopefully, of the recipient that you're looking to engage in. However, all along the path, there are specific filters that are designed to protect people that so you don't receive, that they don't receive that email. So you want to make sure that your emails that you send out miss as many of those filters as possible. There are some of them, I'll give you a few of them, whether you're sending out a corporate versus, whether your email is being sent from a corporate versus a personal email account. What ends up happening is, depending on how the person's settings are, their email looks at it and says, oh, this is being sent from, say, a Gmail account or a Yahoo account. It's not really a business or a true communication effort, versus this is sent from abcchurch.org. That's what I mean by corporate versus personal email address. Some people forget to put subject lines. When you do that, sometimes it goes through some of the spam filters, say, wait a minute, this is spam. We're not even going to show it to them. The receiver's email settings. There are people that can control, when you look on your own computers, you control what you want to have included and not included. And sometimes the receiver's email settings are so tight that very few things will ever get through. And the sender's email address, and we talked about that a little bit, from a free email address to a more professional one. So you want to avoid as many of those filters as possible. One of the best tools to avoid a lot of those filters is to have something called a double opt-in. What that means is when people sign up for your newsletter, they get an email in their inbox, that they reply to and say, yes, I really want to be part of this. Most email servers offer that, but that's what we mean by a double opt-in. One of the biggest frustrations, and I see this happen more often than you can imagine, please don't just add people to your email list. Give them the option and give them the choice. Um, Let people sign up online. Of course, if somebody says, please add me to your list, go ahead and do it. But I've seen enough people just say, oh, I have their email address. Let's just add them to my list. What ends up happening is it builds distrust in people. And you'll end up with more getting hit in more spam filters than before. So please don't just add people to your email list. With that being said, your emails are only as good as your email list. Keep your email list accurate. You can have one email list. Most of the bulk emailers like MailChimp and Robly and Constant Contact allow you to do what's called segment your list. So you can actually add tags to the specific people, categorizing them in different ways. Okay, but you want to keep your email list as accurate as possible. And the challenge is, especially when it comes to people having business email addresses, that's the recipients having a business email address. If they change jobs, suddenly all of that changes. Something you need to understand, and I think everybody here will get this. People's inboxes are loaded with spam. People's email stuff, you're going to get stuff in your inbox from everybody under the sun. And if you're like most people, you get up in the morning, you look at your email and go delete, 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 because you don't even look at it because you get so much of it. So the question comes down to, how do you bypass that emotional response? Even if you can get past the technical side and you end up in their inbox, how do you get past that emotional click, click, delete, 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 delete type of situation? So let's talk about that a little bit. Before I do, I put this in here because I see this a lot. There's a lot of small churches that what they're doing is they'll say things like, oh, I use Outlook, for instance, to send out email. So what they do is they add everybody in their church to the CC section of their Outlook or into the send to, and you see like 50 email addresses. And what ends up happening is you're doing two things. You're risking being what's called blacklisted. What a blacklist is if your email address is, people start complaining or hit respond or complain, a company like Google or Gmail will say, well, we're not going to accept any emails from this email address. That's what blacklisting is. You don't want to be blacklisted. But what ends up happening is people start and they put in all these email addresses. And really what you're doing is you're loading it up, even as going to those few recipients, you're loading it up and giving people everybody else's email address, which they might not want. They might not want public. So you really don't want to do that. If you have a small group, for instance, that you're sending out a group email through Outlook, as an example, use the BCC, the blind copy. Don't even do the CC, use the BCC, the blind copy. So send it to yourself and then put people in the blind copy. That way, nobody else sees anybody else's email address and you can help keep them private a bit. However, when you're sending things out to, say, your church, or you're sending things out to a broader audience, use an email sender. They keep you compliant, they keep you legal, and they kind of ensure that you won't be blacklisted because they have to follow a very specific set of rules and regulations not to be accepted. For instance, having your address on the email, having a way for people to unsubscribe on the email, things along those lines. So if you haven't used one, there are a lot of good ones out there. I'm not going to make any recommendations today of which ones are good, which ones are bad. I'm not going to make any recommendations like that. They all have their strengths. They all have their weaknesses, but use a bulk email sender like MailChimp, Constant Contact, Robly. There's a lot of them. I mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it again because it's that important. Use a professional email address to send the emails out. So the from should be something at abcchurch.org or something at yourorganization.org or .com or whatever it is. It's from your organization. So what happens when the address in your subject down in the bottom, it says, hey, it's from ABC Church, and the email addresses match it, it gives it much more credibility. So use a professional email account. Your subject line matters. A lot of times people put the subject line something like, oh, this is, this date's email. Your subject line matters. Your subject line is going to make people determine, am I interested? What is this? Am I interested in even reading this or not? When it comes into my inbox, if you're one of 50 emails that I got that morning, I'm glancing at the subject line, deciding if I want to click and open it. You want your subject line to say what's in the email, something interesting to say what's in the email itself. So your subject line really does matter. The biggest thing, just like with everything online, build value. Decide what you're going to send and send what you're going to send. What is the purpose of this email? What is the purpose of this campaign? What is the purpose of our weekly, monthly, whatever time frame it is, email? What are we looking to accomplish with it? And then stick to that value. Decide what you're going to send and then send what you're going to send. Build the value for why people should look forward to getting your email and not just saying, oh, here it is again. Please avoid the big catch-all emails. And I think everybody's received these before, where the email is super long and it's about everything under the sun. People aren't signing up for that. It is much better to break your emails into small components and send multiple emails than it is to have one giant catch-all email with everything in it. For instance, if you're having an email to your entire church, then the focus of that email is what's happening for everybody. You're not talking about what trustees are doing. You're not talking about who's teaching. You're not talking about who the greeters are this week. That can be a separate email, an email that goes out. Keep it relevant, keep it short, keep it precise, keep it focused on what you're looking to do. And for the biggest issue that happens a lot is what's called the dreaded wall of text. What happens a lot with email addresses, and I see this very frequently, is, and let me guess, when you open up your email address, and even if it's an email that you want to look at, and you tend to scroll through it, it's like text, you're in your mind, you say, I don't have time to read this. Keep it simple. Avoid the wall of text. So what I recommend to every church is put all the content on the email actually on your website. So on the email itself is one sentence and a graphic, or very little content. Make people change how they're thinking, change the perception of it. From, do I have time to read this, to I want to click on this, I'm curious. Change things up a bit. Avoid that dreaded wall of text, because if people get in the habit of just scrolling past what you're doing, they're not going to take an interest in it. See, it's not about the value that you perceive. It's about the value that your audience perceived. Why should they even care? You know, a lot of times we're very passionate about what we do, and we think everybody should care about what we do as much as we do. And the truth of the matter is that's not the case. People have their own lives. People have their own things that they're doing. So it's not about the value that you place on it. It's about the value that they perceive it as. So make sure the value that your audience perceives is high. What would they want to know? Build value for that. Give a reason why they should even care. How many is too many? This question was asked, and I thought it was a great question. And there's no really solid answer for it. It really depends on what you're looking to accomplish. For some types of email, people send them out weekly. For some types of email, monthly makes much more sense. The whole idea with an email campaign or utilizing email is to actually have a strategy and a plan. What are you looking to accomplish? Is this just informational about, hey, this Sunday, here's the information about our church. Here's what we're looking to accomplish. Is that a monthly email that goes out, or could it be weekly, or could it be however often? Versus if it's another type of email, it might make sense to have it more frequent. The value, just focus in on that value. There is no how many is too many. It's what makes sense for people to get. That we're not overwhelming people. You see, email is not super intrusive. Unlike a text message, which people, their phone rings and they look at their phone right then. Email, they kind of look at as they look at it. So finding that balance and actually keeping to your strategy and accomplishing what you're looking to accomplish actually makes a lot of sense. One of the things that most churches have never heard of that I recommend with a lot of churches is something called a drip campaign. Now, if you've never heard of a drip campaign are automated pre-written emails that are sent out as a schedule, either to an event or from an event. For instance, Christmas is coming next month. Can you believe it's Christmas coming? You know, some people might say, hey, our Christmas pageant is here. this year we're probably not going to have them, but you can actually schedule emails that lead up until that point. Or you can do an email that leads away from a point. So for instance, let's say you're doing a drip campaign to educate people about your childcare. Well, design those emails, and what ends up happening is say, okay, I want this email sent first, then I want this email sent 2 days from now, and I want this email sent, here's the time period I want these sent. So it gives you a way to automatically send things and educate people. It's called a drip campaign. So let's talk about some unique places to use emails. And let's see if you're using some of these. The most obvious is to your church congregation. If you're a church, keeping people updated on what's happening, it keeps them informed, you're giving general information, is great. It's a way to stay in contact with people. It's a way to stay engaged with people. And I think most churches that are using email, this is what they're doing. They're just sending a blast out to the church congregation or whoever does sign up to keep people engaged and keep people knowing what's going on. There's a lot of value in that. I don't want to take anything away from the value in that. We need to do that. But how about this? What about if we created a specific email to a specific group within your church? Let's say the Sunday school teachers, where you can send a blast email out to those specific people that signed up for it, educating them, helping them improve their teaching. Or maybe the church board has their own email blast. So you can educate the church board and keep them informed of different things. Or maybe you're going to offer a specific course or a class. That's not a bad way to do it too. You can say, okay, we're going to send this out to this individual Sunday school class or the men's ministry or the women's ministry or whatever small group that you want to send it out to. So specifying groups within your church is a great tool to use email. And again, most email services, you can actually utilize tags to segment your list to be able to do that. Church visitors. People use email all the time. This, by the way, is a fantastic place for a drip campaign. Picture this. A person comes and visits the church. They sign up. It's the first time they sign up. So 24 hours from now, they get an email saying, it was so nice having you here. We appreciated that you took the time to come and visit us. And then schedule 4 days later, like on a Friday, hey, we'd like to invite you back. We hope to see you again. And maybe let me introduce you to what we have available for children, or what is our youth group like, or educate them and introduce them to the church. And all these emails are automated so you can stay in touch with people. Answer a lot of the questions. Why do we do this? Why do you pass that plate, that gold plate that goes around? I see that candle up front. What does that mean? Answer some of those questions. Don't assume people know what's going on. There's a lot of people who have never been in church or haven't been in church in so long and don't really know. So take the time and actually educate people on what is an altar. What is that candle? Why do we do what we do? Why does that thing that drapes over your pulpit change colors? Invite them back to church. Church visitors, again, are a great way to stay engaged and connected with people. How about offering a digital course or a digital class? For instance, we use Zoom, but you could say, we're going to connect this and say, we're going to release, say, a small video series. And it could be an ongoing course. It could be a seasonal one. It could be linked back to your website. It could be on a specific topic that people might be interested in. And again, once you have it done, you can create an automated type email that goes out to take people to the next step. But offering a digital course or a digital class. How about support groups? Can be temporary, can be login, for your mom's ministry, or maybe you could just do something for fun. Churches sometimes get so serious that fun should be included as well. Maybe a did you know, or tell me the history of Methodism, or did you know that something like this, or here's why we do what we do, it's a support group. Or how about a generosity group? We want people to give. We want people to be generous. Why not create a group of people trying to strive to do that? Or a senior support or something along those lines. So creating those support groups become really, really important. Daily reminders and fun. I know in my inbox, one of the things I get is like trivia questions every day. I enjoy it. It's a break. It's a distraction. It's a break. But why not do some of that for the church? Focus it in on fun or encouraging emails or trivia or quotes or games and contests, anything that's designed fun. The goal, again, is to engage people and connect them back to your church. The more you can stay engaged, the more people connect to you, the more you have permission to speak into their lives, the more connected you are and engaged with them, the more they're going to trust you to actually open up and talk. Sending out emails is really, really important, and it's a great tool to stay engaged and to stay connected with people. The more you build that rapport, the more you build that connection, the more you build that connectivity using emails, the more open they are to really come out and engage and connect with you. And that's really what the whole thing is about. By the way, if I could be of any help, please, here's my contact information. I'd glad to do it. I'll gladly jump online with you and walk you through any topic that you want and do that. My question for you is this: does anybody have any questions? We went through this really, really quickly. Does anybody have any questions that I could answer? Just type them in the Q&A or the chat, and I'll gladly do that. Wow, must have did a good job. Well, again, thank you. If you have my contact information, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to email me. I encourage you to use your email campaigns and make them strong, and actually engage and connect with your congregation, your audiences, and your communities. With that, I'll turn it back over.
Hey, Bob, thank you. Everybody, this is Chris Spencer. I'm the development officer for the Foundation for South Louisiana. And just want to thank you for attending today. And Bob, wonderful presentation. Just like everyone that you've done for us, I've learned something today, multiple somethings actually, in how to better engage and use email more effectively, even in one-on-one emails. I think a lot of the points that you gave us today will be helpful for us going forward. As I close, just again, I want to thank everybody who joined us today. As Bob mentioned in his email, the last slide, you have his contact information to reach out to him directly if there's a question that comes to you after the presentation today that you didn't think about, or you want to follow up and maybe ask in more detail. Our next webinar will be Tuesday, December 15th at 2 o'clock. Bob's actually going to lead it again for us, and it's on using video to connect with your church community. Again, another timely topic for us in these uncertain and times of adjustment and times of flexibility that we're all living in. On behalf of the foundation, I want to wish you and your family a blessed Thanksgiving. May God continue to bless you and your families and your churches and your ministries. Thank you and good afternoon.